All right, so you're probably in holiday mode and this is gonna be the last video until Christmas, but for Christmas, I wanted to give you the gift of 25 steps to buying a home in 2025 in the beautiful city of Chicago. So we're gonna be diving into just very high level what it takes for you to go from point A to point Z so that you can successfully buy a new home in Chicago in the new year. And this is a video that you wanna pay close attention to because some things have changed since 2024 and you're gonna hear about it right now. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jordan Pyle and I'm your go-to Chicago real estate agent. My team and I have been servicing the city for the last 11 years. We've helped hundreds of clients. We get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you every single day. And we would love the opportunity to serve you and your family in the new year. So if you have any questions and you want to start the process to set up a real estate strategy call, just text the number on the screen and a team member or myself will get in touch within 24 hours. Lastly, if you want to join our bi-weekly newsletter about all things Chicago, there's a link down in the description. No obligation, you can unsubscribe anytime. And if this has been valuable to you today, please do us a favor, like the video, comment down below, share it with a friend, and hit subscribe so you can catch all of our future videos. All right, let's go. All right, so as I mentioned, we're breaking down 25 steps, and I didn't do it on purpose. I actually just took the time to write down very high level. So from the point of view deciding you want to buy a home all the way to the closing table, what does that entail in Chicago? And it just so happens to be 25 steps, which goes perfectly with the new year being 2025. And so this is just gonna be some of the things you wanna start thinking about as you are informing yourself, you're researching, you're defining your wish list, and really gearing up to make a move to Chicago or possibly around in the city of Chicago if you already live here. I've put together a playlist in the past about the 4-part process that I like to simplify for clients that are reaching out to me about purchasing. And the reason I say this is because I think in a real estate transaction, we can often overcomplicate it, but when we break it down in these 4-part process or these 25 steps like we'll do today, it makes it much more digestible, gives you confidence, and gives you clarity so you can make the best real estate financial decision. All right, so the first step is you want to start thinking about who you want to hire as your realtor. Do your homework online, ask around to your friends. If you're watching this video, my team and I would love the opportunity to serve you. That's step number 1 though, is deciding and doing your research about who you're gonna hire as your realtor. From there, you're gonna wanna set up an initial call or a meeting with your real estate agent. Some things that I like to do in that initial meeting with my new clients is we talk about what I refer to as motif. We're gonna talk about your motivation, your objectives, your timeline, and then the financials around purchasing a home. So this is gonna give us a good snapshot about what you actually are desiring in a home purchase and what your objectives are so that our team can provide strategy and solutions to help you through the process. All right, so that's steps 1, 2, and 3 is basically figuring out who your realtor is and then having that intro call with them so that you guys can get on the same page. All right, so step number 4 is the one you want to pay the closest attention to because this is the newest change since last year. So starting on August 19, 2024, we as realtors are now legally required to have a buyer representation agreement in place with our clients before we can ever take you in and show you a property. And so before we can get out and start looking at homes together, this is an absolute must. And we are legally bound to have you sign one of these agreements if you feel like our service to you and what we can provide is a good fit. And so this will be a mutually signed agreement called a buyer representation agreement. We will need to have this in place right out of the gate to ensure that we have our commitment to each other. To help clear up any questions or concerns you may have, we like to send along a little video with that DocuSign of the buyer representation agreement, explaining every section and every paragraph to you, what it means, what the obligations are to you, to us, and then what our obligations are from us to you. And so if you have any questions or concerns about that, we're happy to have a conversation and help you understand that in more detail. So going into step number 5, once that buyer rep agreement is signed, we have our initial call. If you are deciding to finance your purchase, the next thing we're gonna do is get you set up with a lender so that you can get your pre-approval. If you are not financing your purchase, we will then at this time ask for proof of funds to make sure that the financing is squared away. All right, number 6, now we're getting into the fun part where we can start looking at properties together. So now we're gonna set you up on what's called a Compass collection. Essentially, think about a Compass collection as a shared file of properties, right? We have access to it. We can put properties in there. You can find properties on our Compass app and our website, and you can add them to this Compass collection. And we can kind of work together to get to a point where we can curate a list of interested properties that we then want to go tour in person together. All right, then step number 7 is we're heading out and we're looking at these homes together. And this might be the first time that we meet in person. This might be the second time, depending on how we met for our initial call. However, this is going to be super valuable for us to start the process of elimination to find you the perfect home. So we're gonna go out, we're gonna set up showings. We're gonna usually set these up about 24 to 48 hours in advance. And we're gonna go knock out 4 or 5 of these in a 2 or 3 hour period together so that we can get a good idea for you what you're looking for and how these things stack up compared to how they look online. And then for us, this helps us better understand what you desire and what you don't, so that if we need to go back to the drawing board and find more properties to tour together, we have a better idea of how we can curate and tailor your search accordingly. Step number 8 is you're gonna refine and repeat this process until you find the one. Number 9, once you find the one, you're gonna say, Jordan, what do we have to do to get this property? And what I will tell you is I'm gonna do 3 things. First off, I'm gonna call the agent again to talk about the motivation of the seller, what's important to that seller in a real estate transaction of the sale of their property. The second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the comparable properties. We're gonna see what is currently active that's similar, what is under contract that's similar, and then what is closed typically in the last 6 to 12 months that is a similar property as well. This is going to help us determine what we think fair market value is, and so that we can come up with our offer strategy to not only take into consideration what we believe fair market value to be, but also what you desire to get this home at, and then combining that with the motivations and what the ideal situation is for the seller so that we can put together a competitive offer. Step number 10 is we're gonna present the offer, and this is going to be a physical contract that we'll send to you via DocuSign. You're gonna need to sign that before we send it off to the other party, and we will communicate directly, typically, with the listing agent of that property. And so we will send it via email, and then we'll also call and follow up and present that offer verbally over the phone. Step number 11 is we're gonna negotiate verbally until we come to an agreement. Sometimes this happens in 1 or 2 back and forths. Sometimes this takes days to be able to come to an agreement. So just know that after we submit that physical offer, we're gonna negotiate agent to agent verbally until we can come to an agreement that's a win-win for the buyer and a win-win for the seller. After all that negotiation, we're gonna have a fully executed contract, and this is the signal that typically means that you are under contract. Now, if we're thinking about the 4-part process I talked to you about before, we are in the last part of this process, which is referred to as the under contract to close. And this is the part where we get into the weeds a little bit, where this could seem complex. There's a lot of obligations and responsibilities for you as the buyer. We're gonna go very high level today, and we're not gonna get super into the weeds, but if you have any questions about what this process looks like, I actually have a video that's in a playlist on this channel called The Buyer Process. And if you go to the 4th video, it's gonna go into a lot more detail about the things I'm getting ready to discuss right now. So we'll link that video right here on the card above, so you can go there and check that out and watch that video after you watch this. All right, so the first thing that's gonna happen once we have that fully executed contract is now my transaction manager for our team is going to step in. They're gonna disperse this contract out to you, and then all of the people that are on your team. These people include your lender, your real estate attorney, us as your agent, and then potentially your inspector and your home insurance agent that we typically work with, so that everybody's in the loop about this transaction and we can start working towards hitting deadlines to get you to the closing table. And the first thing that's probably gonna come out that is going to require something from you is our real estate attorney, or one that you choose. We have, our preferred vendors that we love to work with. We've worked with them for over 8, 9, 10 years, and a lot of people decide to use them. And if you decide to use our real estate attorney, they will send out a retainer agreement basically for their services with the fee, what their responsibilities to you are, and what they will do in the transaction for you. And that'll be a retainer agreement that is only paid at the closing table if we get to the closing table. And so if the deal were to fall apart for any reason, you will not be responsible for paying the attorney fee. The next thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna be responsible for what's called the initial earnest money. This is going to be due within 2 business days after the date of acceptance. Usually the initial earnest money is a small sum of money that is what we call like a good faith deposit. So this is telling the seller that, hey, I'm putting up a certain sum of money to show that I'm committed to going through this transaction and getting to the closing table. Typically, this is somewhere between $1,000 to $5,000 in initial earnest money. The next thing that's gonna be happening in tandem is we're gonna be setting up your inspection. So we're either gonna have our preferred inspector come out to the property, or if you have your own, you can also use them. And we're gonna all meet at the property together. And it's gonna be at about an hour to 2 hour inspection. They're gonna check all the mechanicals. They're gonna check the structure and the health of the building. They're gonna check for cosmetic items. They're gonna put together a robust, probably 30 or 40 page report about all of the findings of the home. This is going to be one of the fees as what we refer to as your closing costs. Most inspections are somewhere between $300 and $500. Once we receive the inspection report back, our team will hop on a phone call with you and we'll decide what out of these items that we either want to ask for the seller to repair or replace, possibly offer a credit to us, or just additional information that we want to get from the seller. We will summarize these inspection requests and we will put them in what's called an attorney modification letter that your real estate attorney will send off to the seller's attorney, which then is starting this attorney review period. We will negotiate on these inspection items, go back and forth to make sure that both parties feel good about the findings and that we can come to a middle ground, whether it be repairing and replacing things, offering a credit, or just providing additional information. Around the same time, your attorneys are gonna be working together to get all of the condo docs for you to review. And then once you receive these documents, which includes things such as the declarations and bylaws, rules and regulations, meeting minutes, and other things like that, the budget for the association, these things are gonna come to you and you're gonna have 5 business days to review and approve before we move on to the next step. So once we negotiate inspection items, once we get through the condo doc review, we are now going to close out of attorney review. Once we close out of attorney review, the next step is you're gonna have to deposit your balance, or also known as your remainder of earnest money. Typically, this balance is somewhere between 2.5% and 5% of the purchase price. So this is gonna be a larger sum of money, and it's gonna essentially be, let's just say on a $1 million property, 5% of that is $50,000. So you're gonna take $50,000 minus your initial earnest money, and whatever that balance is, or that remainder, is what's gonna be due within 2 to 3 business days after the conclusion of attorney review. Around the same time, your lender is gonna be ordering the appraisal for the property, as long as you're not paying cash. If you're paying cash, there's no appraisal, but if you're financing, there will be one. So they're gonna get that ordered. That'll be a cost to you. Typically, these are about $500 to $750, somewhere in that range, depending on the lender. Appraiser's gonna come out to the property, and hopefully the property is going to appraise out. If it doesn't, we can go into a negotiation period about what that means. We can get into more detail with you specifically when that happens, or if you have questions about that. But just know, ideally, the appraiser is going to appraise the property, everything's gonna shake out, and we're gonna move on to the next step. From this point forward, I call this kind of the dark period for us as your real estate agent. So now the appraisal's been done, you have all of your earnest money deposited. Now really your main responsibility is working with your lender to meet one of the most important and final dates or contingencies of the contract, known as the mortgage contingency. So they may be requesting different items from you, whether it be pay stubs or documents or verifications of certain things, in order for them to issue and essentially make you clear to close. Once we meet that mortgage contingency and we are clear to close, there's just some final few steps that are going to happen. We're gonna send out an email to you to help you set up all your utilities. So your electric through Commonwealth Edison, your gas through People's Gas, you may have an internet and cable provider you wanna set up, and anything else that you may think is important, along with home insurance, security systems. This is gonna be that time now that we're pretty close to the closing table. You wanna start getting these services set up in advance so that by the time you take possession of that property, typically on closing day, all this stuff is already completed. Steps 23, 24, and 25 to round it out. 23 is you're just gonna be basically signing preliminary closing docs, working with the title company and your attorney to make sure that they have all of the documentation signed and ready to go for closing day. Step 24 is either the night before the closing or the morning of. We're gonna set up your final walkthrough. We're gonna go over to the property one more time. Typically at this point, the seller has moved out all of their furniture. We're gonna look at the property just to make sure it's in the condition that we expect it to be in. There's no issues, there's no damages or anything that is going to prevent us from closing on time. Once we leave the final walkthrough, we're heading to the closing table. We're gonna sit down. Typically, this is just going to be the closer with the chosen title company. So this could be Chicago Title, this may be Greater Illinois Title. There's a lot of different title companies out there. Your attorneys, typically, they're gonna be there in person or they're gonna be over the phone with you. And you're gonna talk through and walk through all of your condo docs and all of your loan documents. It's gonna be about anywhere between an hour and 3 or 4 hours. If there's any issues, typically, I think our average closing time is probably about 2 hours. And then at the time of the closing, Everything is going to fund. The money is going to transfer from your account to the title company and then dispersed to the seller. And you will get your keys at closing and you now own that home, and you could technically move in later that day as long as there's no other negotiations about, any lease backs or any post-close possessions, things like that. Typically you're going to take possession the day of the closing, but obviously there's certain situations that we may negotiate along the way, which may push that out into the future. So that's it. Those are your 25 steps to buying a home in Chicago in 2025. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team. We would love to serve you and your family in 2025 with buying or selling a home here. So feel free to just text the number on the screen and a team member or myself will get in touch within 24 hours. You can also click on our Calendly link and schedule what we call a real estate strategy call if you just want to talk a little bit more about your unique situation and how our team can help achieve your real estate goals. So that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful. If so, do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend, check out all of our other videos, and we'll see you on the next video. All right, peace.